at the TAP conference. Unfortunately, Deepak is unable to make it, but I will certainly do my best to represent him as well. Happy New Year, and very, very pleased to be here at the TAP conference 2022. Without getting into too much of an introduction, etc., I would like to jump into what is the concept and the criteria that we looked at while recommending and evaluating the awards. So for the I think the Deepak's and my approach, like the previous years, has been to see how we can be as fair, as equitable, and as objective as we could be, given the kind of participant profile that we have. And so for the growth award, I think some of the criteria that we really looked at, broadly, we looked at three heads: top line growth, second was profitability, and third was working capital efficiency. Under the top line, we looked at revenue increase year on year. We looked at domestic and export separately because we wanted to see what's happening on both these markets. We looked at percentage change in net profit, and we looked at percentage change in the gross margin year on year. And on the working capital side, that covered the profitability part. And then on the working capital side, we looked at the change in inventory and change in receivables. Where is the significant improvement coming in on these two criteria? Which tells us how the cash is being managed in the respective companies. So that's on the growth award. As far as the innovation award is concerned, we looked at the R&D expenses and in terms of as a percentage to revenue for the year 21-22. So obviously we wanted to see the commitment of each entrepreneur and each company to R&D and innovation. And of course, we looked at a broad theme in terms of the inputs that came from all of you, which were really in terms of the various process improvement initiatives, the changes in the export markets, the new markets that you would have tried to get into. We looked at the new product introductions, any process and technology improvements and new implementations that you have shared with us by way of the feedback. We also looked at the growth numbers because it was important to see that some of these initiatives are actually translating into some quantitative numbers, and these are not just business improvement or continuous improvement or business as usual kind of initiatives or programs. So we certainly wanted to look at the growth numbers parallelly along with these data points. We also saw whether there was any social impact happening, because many of the companies are very interesting and they are in areas where we believe that they could be making some social impact as well, besides being strong business organizations. We also checked whether there was any change in business model, and we were quite pleasantly surprised to see that quite a few companies have, despite 2 difficult years due to the COVID pandemic situation, some of the companies have made some very interesting changes to their business model, which is really a very, very bold step in a very difficult environment. Most importantly, I think the criteria that we wanted to apply really was which are the companies that were doing something path-breaking, something disruptive, something unique, something very, very unusual, versus initiatives which are part of our day-to-day working and business running. So I think the word path-breaking and disruptive was very important in that came to our mind when we looked at the data for the innovation award. And the third, of course, is the Harmony Award, which is really the employee satisfaction award or whatever we want to call it, but that's how we see it. There, I think the numbers were very clear because we had the questions and we had a rating scale. So I think the winners were very obvious. The criteria was very, very quantitative there. But there we did 2 calibrations to be fair to all the participants. First of all, we applied a criteria that, in any enterprise's case, if less than 25% of the employee response was received, that means if the employee number was 100, for the count for the year. And if the responses were less than 25, then we've not considered that organization for the award. We also looked at the percentage responses that have come in for on the employee base number, and we've kind of applied a factor so that we are fair to both the large companies as well as the small companies, and we are trying to compare apple to apple. So by applying a factor, we wanted to balance out the scores so that we treat everybody at par as much as we could. And then we got after applying the factor, the quantitative scores that came up through the survey in a way got, sort of normalized. And I think that's how we did a couple of sessions. I think between Deepak and me, we had about 2 or 3 sessions ourselves. And we did have a session with, people from TAB just to understand some data points, and also try to understand, some of the organizations and their business models and the industry that they were operating in, the macro factors, etc., just to get a feedback on the environment in which, or the competitive landscape in which, you are all operating. And hopefully at the end of these very interesting, very challenging, very fruitful interactions, we were able to come to some recommendations, which we were happy to share with Ramas and the team, and which I think Ramas will now take it forward and announce. But I must tell you that on behalf of Deepak as well as myself, that we are very, very pleased with the progress that is happening, because we've been, very fortunate to be judges for these awards now for quite a while. And if I may say so, we are like permanent fixtures now at the TAB annual event. We're very happy to see that there's a lot of progress, a lot of interesting data we see. We also see some of the companies performing consistently year on year, because some of the names are very familiar, because we've been part of the whole award process now for a couple of years, and we see some of the companies are growing stronger and bigger. And we also see some very new age companies coming in, people trying out new things. Doesn't matter what their current revenue numbers or the size of the business is. And all in all, it's been a very satisfying experience, and we've learned a lot. And I hope the TAG process and the awards will go a long way in just strengthening this whole organization. I mean, all of you as entrepreneurs do certainly get strengthened, but I think the whole TAB ecosystem gets strengthened as a result of these awards. And most importantly, I think our real expectation is that these awards and the processes that you are going through will actually help you as entrepreneurs to become stronger leaders, and people who are willing to sort of be on the learning curve all the time, and take your organizations to much greater levels. So that's really the expectation, that the awards should result in significantly enhancing the leadership quality of the management team and the entrepreneurs. So that's really what I would say on behalf of Deepak and myself. And I'll hand it over back to Ramas. Once again, wishing you all a happy new year, and hope you have a wonderful year ahead, both in personally as well as in terms of business performance, and all the very best.